All right. Before I get into this interview, the interview I did with Dave Baker, this was recorded sometime last year near the end, and Mark Russell was back on the show and kind of talking to us about his the series that was coming out at the time, Not All Robots, which is an excellent uh, read, and it was great to see that Mark and the creative team got nominated for an Eisner this year. So again, Mark, I'm sorry. I got busy. Um, and then enjoy the interview and read the book.
All right. Welcome back. Making his return back today is Mark Russell, and we're going to be discussing his new series from AWA Publishers, Not All Robots. So let's go ahead and bring him in and find out about the book and what he's been up to. How's it going?
Good. How are you?
I'm doing fine. Looks like it's nice and sunny there. Is it hot and humid like it is here?
No, it's actually kind of cool this morning. It's a little overcast, but that's okay. That's the way we like it up here in Portland.
It's hot and humid here, so not too great. But so let's jump right into this and let's talk about Not All Robots. How about you tell us kind of briefly about what the story's about and maybe who the main characters are?
Sure. Yeah, it's a story takes place in the near future, and it's a society where robots have taken all the jobs. Like artificial intelligence and automation have combined to render human labor utterly meaningless, except for hairdressers. For whatever reason, people still don't want to get their hair cut by scissor wielding robots. So to make up for this fact, to keep people from like starving or devolving into grinding poverty, the ruling council decides to assign one robot to each house so that they have a means of support. And it's really a story about how the people in the house resent their robot that's been assigned to them, that's not really part of the family, and they're frankly a little afraid of. And also about how the robots resent the humans that they've been put in charge of supporting. In a lot of ways, it's sort of a deconstruction of the old suburban model, the sort of patriarchal model that we've been given to, that we just sort of absorbed as normal over the last 2,000 years, where you have a breadwinner in the house who's just out there to make money, and then the rest of the family who's powerless against the powers of their paterfamilias, but put in a science fiction setting with like robots and stuff. Mm-hmm. And it really explores why that the source of our frustrations and our resentments against each other is really kind of stems from the fact that we've been reduced to economic roles, and we sort of see our hierarchy amongst each other based upon these economic roles. So it might sound a little abstract, a little pretentious. And if that's so, it's probably because it is, but I'm trying to do the best I can with it. As for the characters themselves, it centers on the Walters family, who are a human family living in Atlanta. And this is another fact about the near future. Because of the ravages of global warming, all the major cities are now enclosed in sort of air-controlled bubbles, which I don't know if you've ever been to Atlanta. The downtown area already kind of is. If you ever go to the CNN Center, they have like a huge section of the downtown area. It's already kind of in a bubble, which is why I said it in Atlanta, actually. Mm-hmm. It was what inspired me. It was like, when I was going there, it felt so nice inside and so humid outside. It's like, eventually you're just going to do this to the entire city. And the Walters family and their house robot, Snowball, or actually he starts out as Razorball, eventually changes his name to Snowball. That's kind of a spoiler alert, I guess. But yeah, Razorball being the robot that has to support the Walters and the Walters family, the family that lives sort of in constant fear of Razor Ball, their robot, because the robots have like a small but not insignificant percentage of a chance of what they call the glitch rate, where
Mhm.
they will just go crazy and kill the family they're assigned to. So people sort of live, live on eggshells around their robots.
Now, what kind of what influenced the story? Because I get a lot of like Asimov the three laws and all that
Yeah. Well,
from.
the main source of inspiration, at least when I initially had the idea, it's grown since then. But when I initially had the idea, it was sort of inspired by the Me Too movement and the counter movement, the Not All Men hashtag on Twitter, which I was kind of struck by how defensive men who had presumably not been predators were on social media about how the Me Too movement was somehow coming for them. And so I wanted to like write a story about how men have been given enormous privileges and yet still feel like they're the victims. But I wanted to set it in a science fiction setting with robots so that men who maybe are guilty of that could read it and not feel defensive. So hence the title, Not All Robots. It's a take on the Not All Men hashtag. But the metaphor has really grown since then. It's really come to encompass more about how we have been reduced to our functions in an economy, and about how that forces us to turn on each other.
Now, I noticed a theme with the covers to the first issue, kind of famous paintings. Is that a theme we're going to see continue throughout the series, or will the other ones have a different theme to them?
The other ones will have different themes.
Mhm.
We're trying not to like fall down one of those pits where you just kind of use the same source of inspiration for every cover. But Raza and Mike Diodato have like been designing covers for. I think we've got covers 1 through 4 designed, and they're all excellent. So I'm really looking. The covers I think are some of the best I've ever had for my comics. So I'm really excited about the cover art as well as the interior art, which, when Mike Diodato was suggested to me, I was only really familiar with his like superhero work. So I wasn't sure if, he'd be right for this sort of sci-fi satirical series. But then like when Axel Alonso at AWA started showing me some of his other interiors for other comics he'd done with them, I knew he was absolutely perfect, because he just brings like a dimension of it's realism, but it's realism tempered with humanity that I just thought this was some next level stuff I was seeing. So I really wanted him to do the interior arts after that.
Well, when I read the book, I mean, the art also adds. It really helps set the mood for your story.
Yeah, I think in a sort of a dystopian technocracy story like this, the sort of realism of his art really makes it feel real, like you actually can see yourself living in this place.
And I'm always I'm a big fan of Norman Rockwell, but I love the different. I'm going to call it an homage to the neat one from everything, one from anything. Yeah, it's one of those.
Right.
And then the other, I guess the variant is the Grant Wood American Gothic.
Right.
That had me sold on the comic right away. I mean,
yeah, they're both really great concepts for covers, and they both were executed extremely well. But yeah, we've got. I think Raza is really sort of like great at sort of finding these unusual sources of inspiration for covers and making them kind of like all his own. And Mike's covers are also just look really excellent. So I don't think people will. The key to the cover is will it grab somebody who doesn't know anything about the story, like somebody just walking by in their LCS who doesn't know anything about you or the story. What's going to like arrest their attention and get them to stop and like maybe open it up and read a page? And I think both of them just did an excellent job of coming up with really eye-popping covers that are going to make somebody in an LCS who doesn't know anything about this comic stop and at least take a chance on it.
Do you look at your Roomba the same way now?
I've always kind of looked at my Roomba with fear and suspicion. My wife utterly denies this, but I think it has a grudge against me. It like seems to follow me around when I go in a room, and sometimes corners me. Uh, and like I think it resents me to the point where it knows instinctively where to stop its cycle, and it's always in the most inconvenient place in the room to get to, like halfway under the couch or at the head of the bed.
Now, was it a different experience working with AWA than it was, say working with Ahoy?
No, it's very similar actually. They're both really great sort of creator friendly companies who take a very hands-off approach, just let you sort of flesh out your own idea, because they're not trying to hem you into like a pre-existing IP. Mm-hmm. They're not trying to like hammer you into their continuity or to the rules of their universe. They're allowing you to sort of create your own universe. So I really like working for both companies just because you have a great deal of freedom in creating your story the way you want it. There's very, very little that they wouldn't let you do.
Now this series is what, a 4 or 5 issue series? 5 issues, okay. So, I'm not sure if you're familiar with the Netflix show, but Love, Death, and Robots. I also got a very strong, similar vibe, especially the one where the robot, the house robot starts attacking the person in the house, and she's calling the company trying to get them to shut it down.
Yeah, it's funny. I watched the new season of Love, Death, Robots like after I'd already written like all of the issues for Not All Robots. So yeah, I was really kind of amused that was the very first episode of the season was about this like housebot that like turns on its host. But yeah, I like that show a lot, and I like how they are willing to like deviate from a formula, and then one episode is very different both in tonality and in art style, like from the last. It's a very daring show.
Now, do you have a favorite character in Not All Robots that you enjoy writing the most, or maybe have the most fun, or have the most fun writing?
Yeah, I think my favorite characters are the kids, mm-hmm. Sven and Cora, just because they have kind of like had it. Their attitude is very okay boomer, where they just are not willing to like carry any water or put up with any shit from the generation that has basically left them a world where they are house pets. Mm-hmm. And they're very matter-of-factly in the way they talk about their feelings to their mom and dad, and the way they talk about the robot and stuff. And in a way, it's I like being able to like not like having to sort of be diplomatic or think about like how that character's reacting or how they're emotionally trying to like work around the feelings of the other characters. Because mm-hmm. somebody able to be like 100% blunt, just say whatever they actually think.
And do you find it different writing? I mean, the robots that you're writing act very human, but do you find it have to get in a different place creatively to write for the robots as opposed to the humans, I guess?
Well, one of the sort of guidelines I approached this story with was that like we seem to think that like if we designed this artificial intelligence, it would make up for all of the mistakes of human intelligence. That if we had artificial intelligence as like say our police department, it wouldn't possess any of the prejudice or anger issues of our human police. But we're the ones programming these computers. We're the ones creating the artificial intelligence. So in some ways, it will be a reflection of us. We will probably just bake our prejudices and our tendency to violence and selfishness into the program. We'll probably make it even more dangerous because it will be hardwired into whatever we create to sort of like do these roles for us, especially since a lot of times the violence is sort of inherent in the institutional role that we've created, like the police. Mm-hmm. So there's really not much you can do to take it out via programming. So I wanted that to be sort of how I wrote the robots, is they think of themselves as better, as like humans 2.0, mm-hmm. as our superiors, but really they're just sort of like the same sort of tendency to violence that we do.
And one of my favorite parts is the opening part, and I have it up here on the screen. It's where when in the beginning of the book, where you have the robot and the human facing off on almost I almost want to say like a Fox News type show.
Yeah, it's like a talk show, but it's a talk show where the robots are clearly designed to be the majority.
Yeah,
the humans sort of like the Alan Combs of the show, just the resident liberal who's there to get beat up on.
Yeah, I mean that's a pretty fun scene, and it only goes off from there. And then you end the first issue on a pretty gruesome note with the amusement park.
Yeah, that's where it kind of pays to go with a creator friendly company that's going to let you get away with that thing. Because a lot of comics editors, a lot of companies would be like, "What? This ends how?" But that really becomes like the source, the catalyst for the conflict between humans and robots, and sort of like and how they view each other is like it becomes like the Rorschach test, where humans view the death of Orlando as like one way, and then the robots view it like another way. It's like, well, mistakes happen, and which is sort of a metaphor for how for like Black Lives Matter movement.
Yeah.
How when a police officer kills an unarmed black man, you get this very different reaction from the community who see themselves in the victim and realize that could be any one of them, by no fault of their own. And then the reactions of like suburban or rural white people who just see that as like the price of doing business.
So without giving anything away, because I want to read it, what can we expect for the rest of the in general terms? What can we expect to read for the rest of the series?
Well, I think that I've set up the conflict between the humans and robots. The mass deaths in Orlando kind of set up the stage for a grand conflict between humans and robots. And the ruling council, which is worried about its future robot sales, because they're on the verge of releasing this new line of robots called mandroids, which are basically human-looking robots. The next wave, where they look and they're more empathetic. So they're going to replace the current line of sort of unemotional metallic beings with like a more human, more compassionate, sort of softer android version, which of course increases the resentment the robots feel and their own sort of like precariousness in the economy. And it also gives the ruling council like a need to like not rock the boat, to bring everything back to normal so that people will accept the new line of robots. So the big solution they come up with to like sort of smooth everything over from the Orlando death is to make the robots take nicer names. So instead of Razorball, he has to become Snowball, which of course just makes the robots resent people even more. And again, it's all again kind of a metaphor for how we've tried to become a more empathetic society, to be one that like is more sensitive and takes other people's feelings more seriously and doesn't throw around like racial epithets or sexist terms casually like we used to. But at the same time, that's created a backlash amongst people who feel like they're being forced to change, and that becomes like a fault line in the conflict between people who are afraid of their traditional privilege going away and people who are trying to like change the world in order to survive.
So one last question. Robots in real life, good or bad?
I think good overall in real life. I think that, it's, well, I'll say this, robots and automation will either be the greatest thing that ever happened to human labor or the worst nightmare. And it largely comes down to whether or not we're all allowed to share in the profits. Mm-hmm. If you say, well, if we go by the current sort of Jeff Bezos model, where it's like whoever builds the robot automation line first gets all the profits and nobody else gets nothing, mm-hmm. then yeah, it'll be a disaster. It'll be, it'll basically be like a zombie movie. But if you create like a system whereby everybody gets like a universal basic income. We all kind of collectively live off the profits of like the automation, artificial intelligence economy, which will probably in the next 20, 30 years take over most of human labor on the planet. Then it will be the greatest thing that ever happened, because it will free you up from menial labor and jobs, and also from economic worry.
Yeah. Well, I want to thank you for taking the time today, and if you'd like to kind of give a quick, pitch for the book and pitch anything else, or anything else you're working on that people should definitely check out, and where people can find you, of course, on social media.
Yeah, absolutely. I'll start with the social media. I'm usually on Twitter. It's the one I use the most, and I want to use pretty much constantly. And my handle is @Manruss, MANRUSS. As for the pitching, I would like to not only ask that you take a chance on Not All Robots, which we've been talking about for the last 20 minutes, but also my new series with Vault, a horror series called Dead Box, which is about a sort of a haunted DVD rental machine. And I've got a new series coming out with Ahoy, which hasn't been released yet, but it's coming up, and I'm co-writing it with my friend Bryce Ingman, called My Bad, which is told half from the perspective of a billionaire vigilante superhero, and half from the perspective of a villain. So that comes out at some point from Ahoy too. So please check them all out.
And then you also have the what is it, Darkhold?
Yeah, that's coming out, I think
November.
Yeah, November, where I've written a Black Bolt one-off as part of the Darkhold series, which is sort of an introductory event to a series that will be written by Steve Orlando, who's really good
Great guy.
Yeah, and a great guy. So yeah, please check that out. I think like Ryan North is writing the Iron Man story. I'm writing the Black Bolt story. Yep. So a lot of even if you don't check out mine, I would recommend reading the rest of the series.
Well, thank you again, and good luck this year in fantasy football.
Thank you. I'll probably need some.
Me too. So,
all right, thanks, Chad.
All right, thank you, and stay safe, stay healthy, and we'll be in touch.
All right, bye.
Bye.